Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Robert Capers, and I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. Joining me today in this tremendous show of law enforcement strength, to my left is FBI Assistant Director in Charge William Sweeney, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Tim Sini, and Thomas Krumpter, Acting Nassau County Commissioner. And behind me are the various members who compose the Long Island Gang Task Force. To my right are AUSA's John Durham, Ray Tierney, and Paul Scotti. Today we're announcing the unsealing of a superseding indictment charging 8 MS-13 gang members with multiple racketeering offenses in connection with the brutal murders of 3 teenagers last fall here in nearby Brentwood. Their names are 15-year-old Nisa Mickens, 16-year-old Kayla Cuevas, and 18-year-old Jose Pena. The superseding indictment also adds additional violent crimes in aid of racketeering, including an October 2015 assault with dangerous weapons of a male and female victim. It also adds a conspiracy to distribute marijuana. And with this superseding indictment, a total of 13 MS-13 gang members are charged with a total of 7 murders, including the 3 murders that I just described for you. Now, the underlying indictment in this racketeering case was filed last year and charged 4 murders committed by 7 members of MS-13 in 2013, 2014, and 2015. The superseding indictment also adds racketeering and racketeering conspiracy charges against previously charged defendants Johnny Contreras, also known as Muerte, Reaper, and Conejo, Reynaldo Lopez Alvarado, also known as Mente, and Elmer Alexander Lopez, also known as Smiley, Little Smiley, and Alex. Each of those individuals have previously appeared in court and were ordered detained pending trial. Now, if convicted of these federal murder charges, the defendants face life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. Now, while violence and brutality are trademarks of the MS-13 gang, the murders of these 3 teens are particularly disturbing. In September of last year, both Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas were beaten to death by MS-13 gang members swinging baseball bats and a machete. And 1 month later, Jose Pena's skeletonized remains were found in a wooded area that served as a burial ground for MS-13 victims. His bones bore the marks of repeated stab wounds and beatings with a bat or a blunt force instrument. And law enforcement was determined that these brutal murders wouldn't turn into cold cases. And indeed, because of the relentless investigative work of the prosecutors from my office and the FBI's Long Island Gang Task Force, which is comprised of FBI special agents and dedicated members of local law enforcement, local and state law enforcement all across Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk counties, they worked hard and tirelessly to identify the alleged perpetrators and did this in an amazing amount of time, some 5 months. And early this morning, members of the Long Island Gang Task Force arrested 5 defendants, and they will be arraigned this afternoon in this courthouse by United States District Court Judge Joe Bianco. Now, for far too long on Long Island, MS-13 has been meting out its own version of the death penalty against members of their own gang who violate their so-called rules, against rival gang members they seek to eliminate over disputes, and anyone else who they decide that they want to seek revenge against for any reason they so choose. Jose Pena, Kayla Cuevas, and Nika Mickens all attended Brentwood High School, and all should have had long lives to live ahead of them. However, as detailed in our detention memo, members of the Freeport local Salvatruchas clique of MS-13 decided to kill Jose Pena, also a member of that same clique of the MS-13, and their reasons for that were twofold. One, they suspected he was cooperating with law enforcement. And next, they believed that he had violated other MS-13 rules, and for them, all of those transgressions were punishable by death. And on June 3rd of last year, the defendants Elmer Alexander Lopez, also known as Smiley, and other members of the clique allegedly lured Mr. Pena into a car and drove him to a wooded area that they used as a hangout near the old Pilgrim State Psychiatric Facility. And at that moment, Pena thought he was surrounded by friends, but these friends turned on him and attacked him, taking turns, repeatedly stabbing and slashing him with knives, and then left his lifeless body to decompose. Kayla Cuevas was marked for death because she had feuded at school and over social media with various members of MS-13. And Miss Mickens was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time on September 13th of last year. She was simply hanging out with her childhood friend. These two girls were walking together on Staley Street, right nearby here in Brentwood, at about 8:30 p.m. after leaving Kayla Cuevas' home. And the defendants, Selvin Chavez, a.k.a. Flash, Enrique Portillo, also known as Turkey, and two juvenile members of the MS-13 were cruising in a car looking for rival gang members to assault and possibly kill when they spotted Cuevas and they recognized her. These members of MS-13's Sailor Locus Salvatruch's West Side clique, or the Sailors, called their alleged leader Alexei Sayens, also known as Blasty, and his brother Jairo Sayens, also known as Funny, and the two allegedly gave their underlings the go-ahead to kill the girls. Kayla Cuevas, because of the earlier dispute that she had had with MS-13 members, and Nisa Mickens, because she was there and she was a witness. Now, Nisa Mickens never had a chance. She was attacked in the street by these defendants with a bat and a machete and beaten to death about her head and body. She suffered such devastating blunt force trauma and sharp force trauma to her face and her upper body that she was almost unrecognizable. Kayla Cuevas, she ran for her life, but she didn't have much of a chance either, because she ended up in a fenced-in backyard behind a house where she was beaten about the face and body with baseball bats and a machete as well, and left there to die. Now, their brutal murders last September, compounded by the discovery of 3 sets of skeletal remains, including those of Jose Pena's remains 1 month later, caused shock, horror, and fear, not only in the Brentwood community where these crimes occurred, but all over Long Island and even nationally. Federal and local law enforcement responded, and as always, as we do and we must do, by working collaboratively and tirelessly to bring justice to these people who strike at the very heart and fabric of the lives that we try to live here in this country and on this island. Now, it's our sincere hope that these arrests will send a message to all the communities on Long Island, many of which are populated by hard-working and law-abiding people from all walks of life, that we in law enforcement stand by you and will continue to protect and serve you and do the best that we can to save you or to take these dangerous predators off the street. Now, our work here is clearly not done, and our investigation continues. However, I can assure you that law enforcement will continue to be relentless in our efforts to stamp out this scourge that has been created by these gangs. Finally, I'd like to extend my deepest appreciation and congratulations to the men and women of the FBI's Long Island Gang Task Force, which is composed of the FBI, the Suffolk County Police Department, the Nassau County Police Department, the New York State Police, Nassau County Sheriff's Department, the Suffolk County Probation Department, the Village of Hempstead Police Department, and the Rockville Center Police Department, and of course, the dedicated prosecutors of my office for a job well done. And again, those gentlemen's names are John Durham, Raymond Tierney, and Paul Scotti. I'd now like to turn the podium over to FBI Assistant Director in Charge, William Sweeney.
Sure. Good afternoon. 8 MS-13 members were charged today for their alleged roles in the deaths of Nisa Mickens, Kayla Cuevas, and Jose Pena. With little or no regard for the lives of these young victims, the motivation of today's defendants exceeded the bounds of heartlessness and insensitivity. As a parent, I cannot imagine losing a family member, and my heartfelt condolences go out to the families that lost these young victims. Gangs viciously defend their territories and ideals, aligning themselves to engage in acts of violence against rivals, outsiders, and non-members. They retaliate against anyone who dares to close in on their territory, a territory that's often imagined and self-defined. But when retribution takes the form of an assault or murder, it calls into question the well-being of an entire community forced to live in fear. Targeting gangs and the violence they bring to our neighborhoods remains a top priority for the FBI. FBI Safe Streets and Gang Task Forces were established 25 years ago. There are at least 160 of these task forces operating around the country. Combined, our reach is extensive. Nearly 850 FBI agents, 1,500 state and local law enforcement professionals and officers, and over 100 other federal law enforcement agencies work side by side every day. Since 2003, the FBI's Long Island Gang Task Force has been dedicated to protecting the right to live in a society free from violence. This community's task force here fuses the best of the best. Detectives, investigators, and troopers who know their communities and streets and sources, and who can bring local charges swiftly when needed. FBI agents who specialize in targeting networks and gang leadership structures utilizing sophisticated techniques. Other federal partners who each bring their own expertise, all working side by side with prosecutors who will use their skill sets to ensure subjects are ultimately held accountable for their actions. The task force model that you see here today allows us to bring all essential stakeholders under one roof without duplication of effort to address the most violent crimes affecting our neighborhoods and communities. Whether you live in the Brentwood or the Hamptons, you have a right to safety and security in your community. Our message to violent offenders is clear. This task force has a global reach. We will use every tool at our disposal to keep our community safe and hold you accountable for your actions. The task force represented here today is here to stay. Many thanks as always to our partners in this and so many other investigations, to Rob Capers behind me, the assistants, John Durham, Ray Tierney, and Paul Scotti. Thank you to all the members of the task force and to the leadership that's represented here with me today for dedicating your personnel to this mission, especially Commissioners Sini and Krumpter from Suffolk and Nassau counties. I'd also like to thank my agents that worked on this investigation and congratulate them. Ed Heslin, who's not here, Sean McMullen, and Jerry Hart, Geraldine Hart, supervises and leads the task force. She's standing in the back in the shadows, but your work throughout this area makes a difference to this community, so thank you.
I'd next like to call up Suffolk Police Commissioner Tim Sini.
I have to lower this, Rob.
I knew you knew where the button was.
I was eyeing it the whole time. The day Nisa Mickens and Kayla Cuevas were heinously murdered, the Suffolk County Police Department made a commitment to the families and the residents of Brentwood. And today, in collaboration with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, we delivered on our promise. September 13, 2016 was a dark day for many of us. But for the family members of Nisa and Kayla, it was an unspeakable nightmare. It was clear to us at the Suffolk County Police Department that the event was one which would rattle the soul of a community, which is why we immediately reached out to the community to assure them that the Suffolk County Police Department stood with them. We stood with them in solidarity, and we would deliver them justice. During the following days and weeks, I saw the community's trauma and grief as it spread throughout the Brentwood community, through every street, every school, business, and family in Brentwood. But I also saw the strength and resilience in the Brentwood community as they mourned the tragic loss of Nisa and Kayla, and they came together as one to make Brentwood a safer place to live, work, and raise a family. It's been a humbling experience for all of us at the Suffolk County Police Department to stand side by side with the residents of Brentwood and work with them to move their wonderful neighborhood in a positive direction after this unimaginable loss. On behalf of all 2,500 men and women of the Suffolk County Police Department, I want to say to the people of Brentwood, we would not be here today but for your strength, unity, and commitment to justice. My message to the people of Brentwood and all of Suffolk County is that although we are keenly aware that nothing will ever undo the heartbreaking loss of Nisa and Kayla, we can take solace in the fact that their savage murderers will be held accountable. The Brentwood family has spent the last 6 months in mourning, but today marks the beginning of the healing process for this beautiful and resilient community. Before arriving here today, I met with the parents of both Nisa and Kayla, and they asked that I convey their gratitude to the Suffolk County Police Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the FBI and all others who were involved in bringing this case home. Nisa's mother said that she didn't want to cry today because she's been crying for 6 months, and today she was going to enjoy what justice felt like. The Suffolk County Police Department has fulfilled one commitment today, but another still remains. We have promised to eradicate MS-13 from our streets, and we remain fully committed to finishing the job. We will continue to keep the pressure on this ruthless gang and anyone who associates with them, and we will spare no resource to accomplish that objective. As I've said time and time again, we've developed a winning strategy that we are implementing each and every day, and we will not let up until the job is done. That involves gathering an enormous amount of criminal intelligence and creating strategic subject lists, having gang officers on the street and members of our firearms suppression team target those individuals on the street. Since we rolled out our initiative in September of 2016, the Suffolk County Police Department has arrested more than 125 known MS-13 gang members, all while working with our federal law enforcement partners, in particular the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York and the FBI, to prosecute individuals under the RICO statute. I want to thank every member of the Suffolk County Police Department for their steadfast determination, commitment, and professionalism on this investigation, whether it was in connection specifically with this case or the general mission in Brentwood. Since these murders occurred, so many officers have helped us achieve historic low crime rates in Brentwood and the solving of these heinous crimes. From every member of the 3rd Precinct, our patrol officers, our gang unit, our community support unit, our precinct crime section, our special duty chart officers, our K-9 officers, emergency service officers, aviation, homicide detectives, squad detectives, and of course our detectives on the FBI task force, even including the newest members of our department, the recruits in our academy. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This police department is committed to eradicating gangs from our streets. Much work remains to be done. We are in this for the long haul, and we will spare no resource in accomplishing our mission. I want to extend a special thank you to our partners in the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for their outstanding work on this case, with particular thanks to the United States Attorney, Robert Capers, and his Assistant United States Attorney, John Dorham. John, you're an absolute beast. We appreciate all the work that you do in connection with the Suffolk County Police Department against some of the most violent gangs in this country. The collaboration between the Suffolk County Police Department, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office is a true partnership, one that's never been better, and today is an example of how incredibly effective we can be when we all work together. I also want to thank the Division of Criminal Justice Services for grant money that they provided to the Suffolk County Police Department that allowed us to enhance patrols and to target hot spots. Finally, a message to the Brentwood community and the greater Suffolk County community. The Suffolk County Police Department is not a nameless organization. Just like the residents we are tasked to protect and to serve, we are part of this community too. We are your friends. We are your neighbors. We are people who care deeply about the place we all call home, and we're the ones who will do whatever it takes to protect this home. When one of our communities hurts, we hurt. When one of our neighborhoods is faced with evil, we will fight it. And no matter where injustice takes place in Suffolk County, the Suffolk County Police Department will stop at nothing to hold those responsible accountable. Thank you.
I'd next like to call up Nassau County Commissioner Thomas Krumpter. To raise that up for you a little bit.
I didn't know where the button was. Yeah, we stand here today and announce the unsealing of indictment and the arrest of 8 criminals that really have committed truly heinous acts here in Suffolk County. And what everybody should see is that the Nassau County Police Department is going to stand with our partners in the Suffolk County Police Department, and we will not tolerate these heinous acts on Long Island. I do want to just take a moment and thank the United States Attorney Robert Capers for his leadership, as well as the Assistant Director Thomas Sweeney. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Special Agent Jerry Hart. Their leadership is truly formidable, but it's all of the group here working together to ensure that these types of acts will not be tolerated. In Nassau County, we do use a multi-tier approach. Everything from gang suppression at a street level to investigators assigned to the Gang Investigation Squad. But the collaboration that you see here today can take down any gang that's out there. Nassau County won't tolerate it, and we'll stand with Suffolk County and we'll stand with the U.S. Attorney's Office and provide any and all resources necessary to address these gangs. Thank you.
Are there any questions, folks?
Can you detail, please, the immigration status of these suspects, and are any of the suspects named in this indictment considered to be unaccompanied minors who came through into the United States in the last couple of years?
Well, I can't speak to whether they are unaccompanied minors. I can tell you in this indictment that has 13 defendants, that 10 of those defendants are illegal aliens who are not lawfully in the United States. 2 are United States citizens, and 1 is a green card holder.
Has ICE requested these suspects in the past or recently?
I'm not in a position to answer that question.
Has any other immigrants came forward to turn these guys in?
Well, we can't get into specifics. Listen, law enforcement takes a multi-tiered approach. They investigate, they develop evidence. There are sources of information that become known to law enforcement, and we kind of bring all of that together to develop evidence in which we can indict and successfully prosecute these folks. Yes, ma'am.
Cuevas was targeted because of a dispute with MS-13 gang members. Can you give us an idea of the nature of that, just how trivial some of these arguments that lead to death?
We won't get into the specifics, but I mean, listen, these were teenagers, high school teenagers who were engaged in various back and forths, either in person or over social media. And we've seen it time and time again where something that seems seemingly innocuous, particularly to adults, actually means something or is taken to another level with these teenagers. And that's the perils of the days that we live in, and that's the perils of social media today.
You mentioned that Pena had been killed partially or perhaps because his alleged murderers believed he cooperated with law enforcement. Had he?
Well, we're not in a position to say yes or no to that, but it was a suspicion that they had, and you know, that in combination with other factors, they determined were worthy of him being killed.
Could you say any words about how many were arrested today, and are any of the folks arrested juveniles?
There were 5 people that were arrested today. 1 is a juvenile, and then there are 2 that were not apprehended at this point.
Still on the loose?
They are yes, they're unapprehended at this point. Yes.
You said 2 of the defendants directed their underlings in the murders of Cuevas and Reyes. Are they named in this as well, or are those the suspects that are still being sought?
Those are the suspects that are still being sought.
They're named the 2 Saines brothers. They're
Oh.
both in custody.
Well, the Saines brothers are the leaders of the clique, so they're the ones that gave the order to commit the murder. But they gave the order, and they were taken into custody.
Can you give us the ages of those brothers? Oh, is it on the
They're listed in the press release in the back page.
They're listed in the press.
Are any of those suspects students at Brentwood High School?
We're not in a position to say.
With the success of these arrests, do you foresee more immigrants coming forward?
And look, we can't say. What we are, the message that we're getting across to the community is that we're here to serve and protect. And the only way that we can effectively do that is with the assistance of the community.
So, can you just do a timeline of, was it an informant, how did you guys figure out about the body at the Pilgrim State, and then connect that to, so it's 6 months since these two young ladies were killed. So how did this all come together? Whatever you can say.
Well, I mean, not able to discuss specifics. What we can say is that the task force, which was already vigilant in the community, really got boots on the ground, and the Suffolk County Police Department was able to develop information that was used in our investigation. I think what you saw was the coming together of the many forces in law enforcement here, coupled with the hard work of the folks in the office to scour the county. And we employed various investigative techniques, which we can't discuss for obvious reasons, and we're able to have tremendous success.
I'm sorry, can you clarify, these are brothers, Alexi and Jairo?
Yes.
And were they undocumented?
They are.
Alexi has a green card.
Right.
Jairo's illegal.
So Alexi Sayans has a green card. His brother is an illegal alien.
And Sullivan Chavez, what is his immigration status?
There are of the 13 people.
Right, there, and I'm looking for the specific one.
Right. So there are the two U.S. citizens on the indictment, if you have the superseding indictment in front of you, are William Castellanos and Johnny Contreras. Okay, and then the Alexi Sayans is a green card holder. Everybody else is an illegal alien. Sure.
Are Castellano and Contreras linked to the murder?
Not to these murders. They are charged in the underlying indictment with other murders that occurred.
Had they been arrested previously?
Who?
Any of these people?
Well, if you look at the superseding indictment, the first 5 individuals have been in custody because they were charged in the underlying indictment.
But none of the people involved who were arrested today?
There were 5 people that were arrested today, and then Herman Cruz was already in custody. He was charged by complaint with the Pena murder, and so he was already in custody.
But none of the other 5 have been?
And Jonathan Hernandez as well was also in custody. He was charged by complaint with the assaults that I discussed in 2015. In 2015, between the where a male and female victim were the victims of an assault.
No detainers for any of these people?
I'm not in a position to answer that question.
Regarding the illegal immigrants, are they going to be deported? And second of all, are you concerned that some of these illegal immigrants are coming from countries where gang violence is prevalent and that's what they're bringing into the communities here?
These individuals are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law here. They are charged, many of them, with death-eligible crimes, and we intend to prosecute them, and we hope successfully so. And if so, then they will be sentenced accordingly. Once they complete their sentences, that will be for the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
As a law enforcement official, can you characterize once again where this ranks in the brutality of murders that you prosecute?
I mean, listen, what I can say is the murders, particularly of these 2 young ladies, were particularly heinous. They were beaten to death in the street with a machete and bats over seemingly nothing, and left in the streets or in the backyard of a house to die. These were terribly heinous crimes, and as Adix Sweeney said, as a member, as a parent, right? This is, I think, what a parent's worst nightmare is. I think collectively we have all seen and investigated and prosecuted some terribly horrendous crimes. But this is a particularly disturbing set of facts.
How many defendants participated in those murders?
There are 4 defendants who participated in the murder of Kayla Cuevas, and another 4, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, and another 4 who participated in the murder of Mr. Pena.
Physically, not just setting up the order.
You said the Sands brothers gave the order, but
No. In my remarks, I indicated that they were called, and their underlings called and identified or said that they recognized Ms. Cuevas, and they gave the order to kill them.
In the cases involved,
Go ahead. Hold on. Yes, ma'am.
oh, sorry. In the cases involved is this one, I mean, it's something we come up against, is the no snitch rule on the streets. And I imagine, I mean, that's probably one of your biggest difficulties in making these arrests. So I'm just curious how, if you found that to be like a major problem with making arrests in this particular case.
Well, I mean, listen, we investigated this case and brought it to the point of arrest some 5.5 months. And so while there are always difficulties and hesitancies with witnesses, what you see, I think, is a wonderful collaborative effort, along with, a resourceful and a supportive community come together and bring some dangerous people to justice.
Thank you, everybody.
Previous to the superseding indictment, did any of these defendants have a criminal record or were known to law enforcement?
I'm not in a position to answer that right now.
Thank you, everybody.